All right, guys, notable spring window transfers in 2024 or in 2023. Excuse me, you see some of the names here. Bear Alexander, certainly a name who we're pretty used to hearing in the headlines. And then you got Keon Coleman there, more than likely going to be a day 2 round draft pick, transferring from Michigan State to Florida State. Jordan Hudson from TCU to SMU. Chris Graves, another transfer from Miami. And then Emmanuel Pregnon from Wyoming to USC. So you think about the spring portal, you got 5 guys there listed in the top 50. I think it just goes to show, I think as of right now, we're very early on day 1, but in terms of the type of talent that you're going to be able to attract, we haven't seen that guy yet. Outside of Caden Proctor, we haven't seen the Bear Alexander of the world. We have not seen the Keon Coleman of the world that can maybe dynamically change your offense for a guy like Jordan Travis. That being said, we're on day 1. We got 2 weeks left, so we'll see on that. But in terms of the names that are already in the portal, Carl, I'll start with you. Guys that could change an offense, a defense, a program outlook of the names that are in the portal already. Is there one that jumps out to you?
Penn State wide receiver Keandre Lambert-Smith is a guy we've talked about a ton of teams today that could use an infusion at the wide receiver position. I think he's going to command a significant amount of NIL money. I think that he can help take a team, especially one of these teams that's already invested in an elite quarterback. Guys that need big-time play at receiver are going to be all over this guy. He can be a missing piece potentially to a team that's looking to win a championship.
Chris, we just got done talking about Bill Norton, the defensive tackle from Arizona. What is it about him that you think is going to attract a lot of teams in this spring portal window?
I mean, he's not as well known of a name as Keandre Lambert-Smith, but I've talked to multiple SEC staffers over the last couple of days who think that he could come in and start right away for them. He has that kind of presence. He obviously signed with Georgia out of high school, is a big body. He really came into his own last year at Arizona. And I think adding those pieces along the defensive interior, those are the type of small changes that you can make in the spring that lead to large gains in the fall. And I don't think he's going to get as much run as some other guys in the portal, at least in terms of coverage, but he is the type of person who can change the 2024 season for somebody. And I think he's going to have a ton of interest in the portal. And he's got a lot of connections out there, including the staffers at Texas and Washington and other places.
Is there a player comparison out there, like previous, I mean, the name that comes to mind, and that being said, I have not, dove in on Bill Norton whatsoever, but the name last year, if you think about it, as of right now, and the team that's kind of like an exemplary team to look at in the transfer portal, Florida State. And them striking gold not only on offense with Keon Coleman, but with Braden Fisk coming over from Western Michigan. Is he a player, not so much in the NFL development aspect, but that can have that type of collegiate impact?
Yeah, I haven't had anybody bring up Braden Fisk specifically as a comparison, but I totally agree. He is the type of player who can come in, potentially be an early round draft pick if he puts another good season together. I think it's a little different even than Braden Fisk, who proved that, no offense to the Group of 5 level, but he had to come into Florida State and prove he could play on the Power 5 level. Bill Norton is somebody who's already done that at Arizona, thriving in the Pac-12 last year. And I think a lot of schools view him not only as a rotation piece, which I think is a common thing for a lot of the defensive tackles you're hearing about now, but a potential starter. So a lot of schools are very high on him.
Smoke, we are almost 3 hours into the show. We're getting ready to wrap up here in about 17 minutes. We have not talked about Damian Martinez. One of those names you talk about, Chris, obviously being very well sourced, but if there's a guy that people are really interested in terms of plug and play, especially at the running back position, a guy that's got a lot of production up there in Corvallis, playing under Jonathan Smith, Damian Martinez is a name that keeps coming up.
When you add a running back from the spring ball going into fall ball, that's probably the easiest position that you can add. Because all you have now is inside zone, outside zone. You might have a counter, might have power. There aren't a lot of complex run games that's in college football right now. So if you want a plug and play impact type running back or player, Damian Martinez is my guy that can come in and get you 1 or 2 close wins down the line as we get closer to the playoff. If he goes to a cold weather team, if he stays in the Big Ten, like you said, heavy Chevy moving, running back running, touchdown making, qualifies touchdowns and points at the end of the game to win those significant close ones at the end.
Big picture-wise, it's interesting. We got a little bit of time to stretch out here. And one of the things that I was thinking about, Dallin Hayden jumping in the portal from Ohio State. And you think about Ohio State in that running back room, right? And we talked about Cam Ward, and we talked about all these dots being connected. You think about Dallin Hayden was a guy who had a productive freshman year, pretty much red shirts in his second year in Columbus. And then Ohio State brings in Quinshon Judkins, one of the best running backs in all of college football. But you wonder if there's enough depth in that room, and you've seen what you liked out of Dallin Hayden, you wonder kind of how it's all connected in the fact of, well, if we don't have to go out and use all our resources to invest in a guy like Quinshon Judkins, how much does that free up other parts of our roster that we're going to be able to attack? Smoke, is that type of thinking now becoming a reality where it's really, we're not that far away from saying, hey, are we going to overvalue the running back position where, yeah, maybe Quinshon Judkins is an overall positive for us. Maybe he moves the needle a little bit. But in terms of how much more is he going to give us in running back room of, Trevion Henderson and Dallin Hayden, I don't know if it's worth it for us to go get that guy.
Well, when you look at the Ohio State offense now with Chip Kelly, we understand what Chip Kelly is going to do. He's going to use two backs, but that third back's going to be the quarterback. And there aren't that many balls, there aren't that many carries to go around. So if you do lose your third running back right now is going to be Bill Howard, especially when you get into that red zone, to create that extra gap that you can't defend as your quarterback. So it's not that big of a loss for them if they lose their third running back, because they already have that built in with the package that they just got and also the player that they just acquired.
We'll see what happens over the rest of the spring, but Carl, I kind of want to throw it back to you. Not sure if we really got to finish this topic beforehand, but is there one portal addition, maybe from the winter, that you look at and say, whoa, that kind of changes the dynamic of the team? I brought up Judkins, you got Walter Nolan, certainly at Ole Miss as well. The complexion of that roster seems to be completely different as the Rebels are all in. You go down the line, Julian Fleming, right? Could be the best friend that Drew Aller never had. Brock Vandegrift at Kentucky. You can go down and down the list. Is there that one guy that you're looking at that maybe not a lot of teams are focused on, or maybe the guy is getting enough credit because he is going to be that big of a changer?
I think that you just said his name. I think it's Brock Vandegrift. Kentucky has been a team that has been very consistent. I know this season that Mark Stoops made some things about NIL and how he needed more support, but Kentucky is a program that has consistently been 8 wins, 9 wins. They can pop a 10 on you every once in a while. I think solidifying the quarterback position at Kentucky is going to really help them. It's not a national championship move, but it's a move towards keeping your program going in the right direction.
Chris, from a holistic standpoint, I know it's hard for you to sit there and say oh, well, I cover this, but I actually like what these guys are doing. One or two teams that have maybe stood out to you?
Just from the cycles.
I would say, because we're going to talk about it in a little in the next segment, but so far, in the winter period, what you've seen.
Well, I mean, I think A&M should get a lot of credit for the way they reworked that roster. It was a really popular segment for people in our industry to talk about A&M losing all those players, right? Evan Stewart's gone, Walter Nolan's gone, all those 5-stars are gone. But they've really quietly addressed that roster and almost every need possible in a transition year for them. Sure, they'd like to add a linebacker. Sure, they'd like to add another offensive lineman. But they had nothing in the secondary coming back, and they added 10-plus transfers in that room, and I think it's going to be a strength for them. They've positioned that roster to potentially contend next year in the SEC if things break right and Connor Weigman's healthy. So I think A&M's done an excellent job. And then I think a team like Florida State gets a lot of credit in the portal, but you have to continue to give them credit because they don't miss a lot. They evaluate in the portal as well as anyone. Their early returns from their class so far have been excellent as well. I think DJU is going to be an excellent fit in Tallahassee for them, and I think that's going to position them to, again, be in the ACC mix, despite the fact that I think a lot of people assume this would be a transition year.
Smoke, I wonder, with the college football playoff going from 4 to 12, what I think is going to happen, this is just my estimation here, is that you're going to see a lot of teams right now that are spending money. But in terms of once they get into that arena, maybe the semifinals, maybe you got those teams that we talked about. Maybe we're talking about Ole Miss. I don't think they're going to be a problem. But Missouri, maybe you got an NC State, maybe you got one of these fringe programs. They get into that deep water, and they got Georgia, and they got Ohio State, and they got Oregon. They have these teams with immense depth. I think the other thing that we're not talking about is how much that's going to change college football. And now where teams are going to say, you know what, we got a barometer on the big stage, and now we know what we have to do to go win a championship.
Well, Carl, Coop, you and I had this conversation. The best thing about college football was always every Saturday counts. Now when it's all you have to do is get in the top 12, how many schools are going to start load managing, depending on what your depth looks like? That's going to be a part of what the new college look is going to be. Because if you can't go 8 deep at the offensive line, 8 deep at the defensive line, have a backup quarterback that can come in, after you win 10 games, are you willing to play your best players knowing that you already have a spot in the college playoffs? So that's something new that we have to look at. And as you construct your roster, what you have to do. And when you do go to the coach and say, hey, coach, I know you're old school, and I know you want to go 14 to 20 periods during the season, but we already are in the dance. All we have to do is just stay healthy and get to the promised land and win.
Load management, CBA. Sounds a whole lot like the NBA, huh?
Yeah.
We are there, college football, taking a crazy, crazy turn here.